Hello everyone and welcome to Rajput, Jain and Associate. Today in this video we will discuss about Form 15CA and Form 15CB. So as international transactions come with a lot of tax implications, government has come up with the introduction of Section 195 of the Income Tax Act, which specifies the withholding of tax on sums that are taxable under the statute. Additionally, anytime we make some payment to a non-resident, the bank tests whether or not we have paid the said amount of taxes. So for that dimension, they depend on chartered accountants. So let us start with the meaning of Form 15CA. Certification under the Form 15CA is a remitter's declaration and a method used to collect information about the payments made to non-residents. Indeed, the form includes the remittance information as well as the transactions tax details. In fact, whether or not the invoice is subject to VAT, the registered dealer and the banks are now making sure we pay taxes on purchases that are made by them. And they are asking us to request these forms before the transaction is processed. They compile these forms and exchange them with the tax authorities in addition to it. This actually forms part of an income tax department information management framework. To assess tax responsibility, it monitors the overseas remittances and their existence. Department of Income Tax has also created an online facility to file these documents. Therefore, we register Form 15CA with the Income Tax Department online. Though we are still printing and sharing the details with the bank or AD banks after the submission online. Next, we have the different parts in the Form 15CA. So the Form 15CA is basically divided into 4 parts. First, Part A, where the remittance or the sum of such remittance will not surpass 5 lakh rupees during the financial year, whether or not it is taxable in India. Next is Part B, where the assessing officer has obtained an order or certificate under Section 195(2), 195(3) and 197 of the Income Tax Act. Next is the Part C, where during the financial year, the remittance or the sum of such remittance crosses or exceeds rupees 5 lakh rupees. And lastly, Part D, where the remittance is not tax due. Next comes the Form 15CB. So Form 15CB is a certificate that is provided by a chartered accountant. This certificate sets down in detail the rates and the taxes that are payable. And in some situations, explanations are also provided for the taxes paid or not paid. All types have basically the same type material. 15CB does require registration. However, we also file 15CB first as its acknowledgement number is provided while filing the 15CA form. Next, we will discuss about the applicability of Form 15CA and CB. So as per the provisions of Income Tax Act, a person would now be required to file Form 15CB for all the payments exceeding 5 lakh rupees in a financial year. So the type of transactions that are not needed for 15CA CB form are an individual transaction that does not need RBI permission, payments of a specified nature referred to in Rule 37BB. However, we have heard of cases where banks still ask for a 15CA CB even when not needed. According to the income tax rules, no filing is to be made in Form 15CA or Form 15CB in case of the following types of international remittances that are provided in Rule 37BB. Now let's have a look on the steps for certification procedures of 15CA and 15CB. So first is obtaining a chartered accountant certificate in Form 15CB. So a chartered accountant is required to thoroughly check that the sources specified in the origin of funds are correct and whether the TDS is correctly directed or not. Then they have to upload the online Form 15CA and after that send the documentation to the bank holding NRE account, which will include Form 15CA, Form 15CB, a check or a demand draft for the said amount of remittance, a request letter or a form as required by the respective bank, and complete all the other papers, specifications and formalities. Then comes the transfer. So bank must process the transfer and credit the NRE account after a review of the submitted documents. Next we come on to the mandatory details that are required when filing in the forms 15CA and CB certification. First one is the detail of the remitter. So complete name of the remitter is to be provided, then complete address, email ID along with the phone number of the remitter is to be provided, then the permanent account number or the PAN number of the remitter, complete place of business of the remitter, the email address and the mobile number of the remitter, their status like the remitter is a person, firm, company or any other sort of institution. After that, they have to provide the details of the remittance, wherein they have to provide the proposed date of remittance, the nature of transaction as per the agreement, for which they have to provide the invoice copy that is asked from the client. Next is the source of fund proof, country to and the country in which the remittance is required to be made, and lastly the amount of remittance, and that too in Indian rupees. After that comes the bank details of the remitter. In this, the person would be required to provide the information of the name of the bank of the remitter, the name of the bank with branch details, the BSR code of bank from which the remittance is to be made. Next comes the details of remittee. In this, they have to provide the complete name of the remittee, complete address and email ID and the mobile number of the remittee, the details of the country of the remittee, and lastly the main place of the business of the remittee. Next comes the documents from the remittee, that is the Form 10F that is to be duly filed by the authorized person of the remittee, the documents of the tax residency certificate of the remittee, and lastly the section under which order a certificate has been obtained. Last time comes the other details needed like the father's name of the authorized person or the signing person, the designation of the authorized person, the proof of payment of tax on fund transfer from India, proposed date of remittance, complete name of such bank and the branch to which the amount is to be made, the supporting documents for the remittance, and lastly a digital signature of the person who is required to transfer the funds. Now next we come on to the steps for filing Form 15CB. So the person requiring to remittance shall log in into the e-filing portal of Income Tax Department and look for the My Account tab. Now under the drop down, select My CA or ERI and click on My Chartered Accountant. After this, click on the Add tab and then provide for the membership number of the Chartered Accountant who would be certifying the Form 15CB. Now once the membership number is entered, the name of the CA will be auto-populated, and after clicking on the Add button to add that CA of their account. After adding the Chartered Accountant, select the Form 15CB Certificate of an Accountant as per Rule 37BB as provided under the forms available on the portal and then click on Submit. So once the Form 15CB is selected, the assessment year provided on the page will disappear. After this, the CA will file the Form 15CB on behalf of his client. The CA needs to download the form from the download section on the e-filing portal and the same be downloaded in an XML file. This XML file will be completed by the CA and will be uploaded to the Income Tax Department or the e-filing website. The assessee can view the uploaded Form 15CB on their respective e-filing account. Now next we come to the steps for filing Form 15CA. So in order to file Form 15CA, the steps to be followed are: firstly, the NRI needs to log in into the Income Tax web portal. After that, they have to create a new user account with the help of a PAN card or some other proof. Then they have to visit the e-file option and select Form 15CA. Form 15CA will have certain steps to be followed. Then they have to fill in the required details as per the forms and the part which we have already discussed. On completing the information, they need to submit the form by clicking on the Submit button. So on successful filing, the NRI is required to submit a copy of the filed form with their bank. The bank officials will sign on the same and thereby complete the procedure of transfer. Now CBDT enables electronic filing of forms ITR 1, 4S, 15CA, 15CB and 15CC and other ITR forms that are enabled shortly by them. Next are the situations in which Form 15CA and CB are not necessarily required. So no Form 15CA or 15CB is required under Rule 37BB of Income Tax Rules in certain cases, which are first of all where the payment in advance is required for import, or where the payment is made for the import invoice settlement, or in case of diplomatic missions imports, when it comes for the intermediary trade, and lastly where the import value is less than Rs 5 lakh. After that, we will discuss about the situations in which the Form 15CB and CA are not required. So when a remittance is not subject to taxation, then Form 15CA and CB would not be required to be filed. Apart from this, Form 15CB is not required if the total value of the remittance in a particular financial year does not exceed ₹5 lakh. In case where the certificate of lower or no deduction or any order is made from the juridical assessing officer under section 195(2), 195(3) and 197 of the Income Tax Act, no 15CA/CB form would be required. So next we come on to the penalty in case of default of filing. So in the event of a default, there will be a penalty. So a penalty of ₹1 lakh shall be imposed if the forms 15CA or CB are not filed on time. Now, is it possible to remove form 15CA or CB once they have been submitted? So within 7 days after submitting the online form, 15CA can be withdrawn. However, there is currently no way to withdraw form 15CB. Finally, we come to some of the frequently asked questions on Form 15CA and Form 15CB. So first one is like when a person is required to make payment is below 5 lakh, then what are the documents to be filed? So in such a case, the applicant would be required to provide the information about such payment under the Form 15CA Part A. Next is when a person required to make payment is more than 5 lakh, then what are the information to be provided? So in this, a certificate from the chartered accountant in Form 15CB would be required. Apart from that, Part C of Form 15CA is required to be filled and Part B of Form 15CA shall also be provided. Then where the payment is not subject to tax and the income tax department. So in such a case, Form 15CA Part D is to be provided. So in the following circumstances, no information be provided. The remittance shall be made by an individual and shall not require the prior approval of RBI as set out in Schedule 3 of FEMA Regulation 2000. Next is what are the implications for the non-filing of Form 15CA and CB. So if the assessor who is supposed to file 15CA/CB fails to provide the same information prior to the transfer to a non-resident, the assessor shall be liable for penalties regulation in accordance with Section 271I of the Income Tax Act 1961. Such an unlawful provision shall be attracted even if the person has provided incorrect information. The amount of penalty that the assessing officer may ask the assessor to pay for non-compliance is ₹1 lakh. Next is, can we revise or cancel Form 15CA or Form 15CB? So yes, Form 15CA may be withdrawn within 7 days from the date of submission. The respective link to withdraw shall be available on the Income Tax Department. However, Form 15CB cannot be withdrawn after submission. So this was all about Form 15CA and Form 15CB. For any query, contact Rajput, Jain and Associates, or you can also visit our website www.carajput.com. Thank you.